So then what was it like growing up as a Christian kid?
I look back now, it was hell, but at the time, the internal driving force that I
Mhm.
put on myself to like win souls
In
and
elementary school,
and that really started like fifth grade.
was there ever a point where you look back and say, oh no, I need to rest more on what Jesus did? Or was it always sort of this kind of mixed bag between, yeah, Jesus saved me, but
It's the classic
mm,
split personality,
mm,
bipolar, like it's
mm,
all throughout the Bible. No matter how much we try to cover it up, like, yes, you're saved by faith. Yeah, but also read
mm.
this over here where if you're lukewarm, he's going to
Right,
spew you out of his mouth.
right.
I knew I was saved, but I never felt safe.
Mm. What's the biggest difference about you having deconverted? What would you say to somebody who's looking at that door like, I think my heart's already on the other side. I don't know how to get there. So let's dive in here. You were a Christian and you no longer are.
Correct.
Um, how long had you been a Christian? How did you become a Christian?
Man, honestly, I feel like I was a Christian coming out of the womb.
Okay.
Like my earliest memories
Mm,
go back to being in church. I tell people I was in church 8 days a week, man. Like we were always in church. And the lineage of my family,
mm,
pastors, grandfather was a deacon in
mm,
the church. My dad was a deacon. Great grandfather was a pastor. So
mm.
I mean, it goes back generations of Christianity.
Okay. So growing up in the church, your earliest memories, 8 days a week.
Yeah.
What were you doing in church 8 days a week?
Just whether it was prayer meeting, choir practice,
Okay.
you know, I got active really in church probably like second or third grade. Like that's the first memory I have of really quote unquote giving my life to Christ.
Wow.
Was like in second grade. I just remember being out initially we were going to a Baptist church and they used to send all the youth down about a quarter of the way through the service down to
Yeah.
the basement.
Yeah. Children's church. I remember it well.
Children's church, yeah. And I remember being down there and just they made an altar call and I saw everybody going up front and I just felt something in my spirit, I guess,
Mm,
if you will, at that time, like, oh man, I need to be up there too.
mm.
And I remember giving my life to Christ at like 7 or 8 years old.
Now, so let's try to like dig into that because I can relate to both of those things,
Mhm.
maybe a little bit later for me, but so you see everybody going up front and you feel something that says, man, I need to be, and that could have just been, even as a Christian, I could look back at things like that and say, oh, that was more, I was moved by the communal experience.
For
This is
sure.
what my
Mhm.
my, my society or the social group I'm a part of, we're all doing this. I don't want to be left out. But then to get up there and say, okay, I didn't just join a bunch of people who went up to the front. I gave my life to Christ.
Right.
At that young age, was there an understanding that you were doing more than just joining people at the front, but giving your life to a God?
I think my understanding in that moment
Mhm.
was this is what I'm supposed to do if I want to be a Christian. I'm
Okay.
supposed to go up front
Mm,
and pray that prayer
mm,
and now I'm a quote unquote Christian. That was kind of
okay.
the max of my understanding at that point in time of it.
And it's I'm sure it's very hard to even try to put yourself back in this place, but if you can, your impression of you back then, why did you want to be a Christian at that point?
Because all my family was
Okay.
like my parents were, Christians. My grandparents were Christians.
Mm.
My grandparents on my mom's side, we used to spend the night over there. Every time we were over at 10 o'clock, it was prayer time. Like took the phone off the hook, like unplugged it. So it was like I wanted to be
I
like
remember
that's
that.
how
Wait,
entrenched.
but no, like why would as a kid, I'm just trying to imagine why would you want that though? Like what?
because it was like you wanted to be, and what I've learned now through
Mm,
my own personal growth and journey, I think at that age of life, like
mm,
we that's when we're learning the rules of the game,
got
right?
you.
We're learning of what does it take to be accepted
Mm,
in our world. And so for me, my world, my family was be a good Christian. Like that's
yeah,
what it took to be accepted. So I knew if I went up front that I was doing what it took to be,
got you.
to be accepted in that
Got you.
game.
So this was going to get you like you were around the clubhouse. This was going to make you a club member.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you give your life to Christ at first or second grade. Yes, 7 or 8 years old.
7 or 8. Yeah. It was like second or third grade. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Hold on real quick. Housekeeping. Your
Yep.
voice is sounding kind of echoey. Sorry, we had to get that straight. But you're 7 or 8 years old, second or third grade, somewhere in there. You give your life to Christ. Um, do you what happens in terms of your how do you get the sense that what you did at that altar the call worked? Did you feel more Christian? Did you understand what it meant to be saved? Did you like I don't know how much dirt you could be doing at that age, but like did you stop robbing banks or
Right. Put that candy bar back.
yeah.
No, I think it was more like I understood that I did the right thing based on the acceptance from my family.
Okay.
So it was like,
Mm,
okay, I
yeah.
got to go back upstairs and tell my parents, like, hey, I gave my life to Christ, and
Uh,
then you go out to dinner and celebrate,
okay.
and then you get back with your grandparents and your cousins and you get to
Mm,
tell them. So now it was like, oh, yeah, it was
right.
reaffirming that
Okay.
I did the right thing.
Okay. So then what was it like growing up as a Christian kid?
Man. I look back now, it was hell, but at the time, at the
Being a
time,
citizen of heaven was
man,
hell.
good grief. At the time, it was just very like um disciplined, regimented,
Mhm.
and it was never external, it was like an internal
Mm,
um I don't know if pressure is the right word, but it was an internal driving force that
mhm.
I put on myself to like win souls
In
and
elementary school?
that really started like 5th grade is when I really
Wow.
got conscious of that. And then
Mm,
I went to a church camp.
mhm.
Um, Church camp would have been going into my 7th grade year. That's when I really found out why I believed what I believed.
How'd that happen?
So was going to a church at the time. So we had moved from a Baptist church to a non-denominational church at that
Mhm.
time. When I was in 4th grade, we did that. And then so like 5th, 6th, 7th, I was like getting super active in my youth group. And so we were going to camps and church camps and went to this church camp with my youth group that summer. And it was this pastor, man, I can't remember his name off the
Mm,
top of my head, but this is it was just like fire brimstone
mm.
attack on music. Like he was
Whoa.
like really breaking down secular music versus
Like the devil is in it or kind of thing?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, like
Okay.
how the devil's in the music. So like I came home and threw away all my tapes, all my Belle Biv DeVoe and like got rid of all that stuff. And I was like, that's when like Christian hip hop became my music of choice
Okay.
in 7th
Wow.
grade. But at that time, at that
Mm.
camp is when I like rededicated my life to Christ and really was
And why
cognizant of
did
what
you
I was
feel the
doing.
need to rededicate? Was it because of the secular music or other things?
Yeah, it was like there was parts of my life that were lukewarm still.
Mm,
And I'm like, man, I need to be just totally cleansed again
mm,
to get right with God,
okay.
to make sure. And you got to understand too, B, at this time, like in my childhood, like at home, we're watching like TBN
Mm,
every night, so I'm watching all these pastors on there. we used to watch like once a month. We would watch this Left Behind movie, like from the 70s, and it would have like these people, that missed the rapture. And so it was just like all this fear. Like, so I was always just like, man, I just want to make sure I'm okay. Like, I just want to make sure I'm safe. And so that was the reason at that camp, like all that combined, it's like, okay, I still got these parts of my life that aren't falling into where they're supposed to be. So I need to rededicate.
Okay. I'm going to ask this question because somebody's going to ask it at home and maybe even try to slide it in the chat. So I'm just trying to cut them off, at the pass. Do you think because, even with all the Left Behind stuff and the scaring you and the idea of hell and all that, and then so you got to cut out more secular music, you got to stop cursing, maybe you got to, whatever you do to kind of get more right. How much of your spiritual identity was in you needing to do things to be saved versus trusting what Jesus did to save you? Because I know I spent a good portion of my life from 12 when I responded to my first altar call till about maybe 18 or 19 when I finally think I got a better understanding of a justification by faith idea of the gospel. But between those ages of 12 and 18, even when I was getting more serious about God and I stopped cursing and I stopped listening to secular music and all that, I still didn't understand the difference between what I was doing to maintain my salvation or whatever versus what Jesus did to secure it in the New Testament sense. So I guess I'm just curious, was there ever a point where you look back and say, oh no, I need to rest more on what Jesus did? Or was it always sort of this kind of mixed bag between, yeah, Jesus saves me, but I better make sure I do my part too?
Always a mixed bag.
Okay.
There was never rest. Never rest. Yeah, it was
Okay.
always that mixed bag. Like, I hear this, but this is what I feel. And I think that's a microcosm of what we read in the scripture.
Wow, talk about that. Please say more about that.
It's the classic split personality, bipolar, like it's all throughout the Bible. And
Yeah.
it's no wonder everybody is
Yeah.
living out bipolar characteristics, because it's what we read. No matter how
Wow.
much we try to cover it up, like, yes, you're saved by faith. Yeah, but also read this over here where if you're lukewarm, he's gonna
Right.
spew you out of his mouth.
Right.
So, like, yeah,
Test yourselves to see if you be of the faith, and
exactly.
all kinds of ideas that make you unsecure in this thing that's supposed to be securing you.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. So you go to this church camp it's 7th grade.
7th grade. Yeah.
Now you kind of know, here's why I believe what I believe. You're trusting Jesus, but at the same time, you're keeping a very close eye on your own life. And what is the scripture even says, right? Keep watch over watch your life and doctrine closely.
Right.
So you're watching your life closely. Was there ever a pinnacle moment? Like, how deep into it did you go?
Man, when I came back from that camp, like, I was on fire, and that fire never went out until the deconversion started.
Really?
Yeah, like,
so no backsliding.
I mean, there were some some close call fall moments,
Okay.
and which we can get into, but the baseline of my life was like on fire at school, football practice. I was an athlete, so football, like, that was now my platform to win souls.
Wow.
Like, everything. I was known as the Christian guy, like, in school. People call me Brother Luke. I mean, that was just like, I was witnessing. I could tell you scripture, chapter, verse for every ailment
Now,
we're dealing with, like,
were you the
nuts.
kind of Christian guy that they were trying to stay away from, or were you somehow approachable?
I was approachable, but I was so, like, staunch in my stance that people didn't want to sin around me. Like, they wouldn't you know, they wouldn't want to come around me if they knew they were going to be cussing or smoking or drinking or
Okay.
whatever in school. So
Mm,
it was never like you know, they felt intimidated or like they felt like I was going to preach at them, but they
mhm.
just knew what I stood for and that I was going to come at them in love
Okay.
about
Now,
how
where
they
did you
could
get that from?
better.
Because normally the people who are quote unquote the holy rollers have a hard
Mhm.
time dishing it out in love. Where did you get that from?
I think from my family because
Okay.
my family you know, they're loving, warm people, so
Mm,
they were never like beat people over the head.
okay.
Um, but it was, you know, it was like you got a job to do to not be like them and to win them
Mm,
over. But they always did it in love, and so that's
okay.
where I kind of got it from.
Okay. Now, did you stand alone in high school, or did you have a Christian crew or Christian friends who were rocking with you?
I had, I mean, some people that were lukewarm Christians,
Okay.
but I was definitely like the most Christian of the pack
Mm.
by far. Yeah.
So if your Christian well, if your high school friends
Hmm.
knew that you had deconverted, they would say what?
Well, some of them know and they
Okay.
can't believe it. Like they're
Okay.
just like, nah, he'll come back.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, the majority of them, like when this goes public, this will probably be the
mm.
first time they see it, and
Wow.
they'll be shocked.
Wow.
I know it. Yeah,
Okay. So you say Christian hip hop became a part of your life when the youth leader was dissing secular music. So who were
yeah.
you rocking to?
Let's see. So that was, let's see, seventh grade. That would have been 92.
Yikes.
Yeah, yeah. So like T-Bone at that
I
time.
remember T-Bone. Yep.
T-Bone, because I think y'all kind of came like 94, 95.
Our first album was 97. So we were
Was
busy.
97. Okay,
Yeah.
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 Because I know once I got into high school, like y'all were one. I used to have like these rap battles where I'd be like, "Hey, you bring your Dr. Dre, whatever. I'm gonna bring mine. We're gonna see who." I would, I would bring y'all. I'd bring Gospel Gangsters.
Wow.
I'd bring Brainwash Projects,
Okay.
LPG. Like I'd
Wow.
bring my whole collection.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna see who's it was wild, man. But yeah, back in like 92, it was more
Hmm.
like that's
Yeah.
when the like Gospel Gangsters
Right.
first CD or not CD tape I
Yep.
had came out, the gang affiliated tape.
Okay.
Um yeah,
SFC and those guys.
SFC, yeah,
Yeah.
SS Mob,
Mm.
um Grape Tree, I think started.
Wow. Yeah. 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 Wow.
So
Okay. So you was
yeah,
rolling. You
I
was
was
rolling.
rolling, man.
You felt equipped, at least culture wise, like, man, you didn't make the wrong decision because you
Right.
became a Christian and you still had the culture.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So you graduate high school, you do high school as a Christian,
Hmm.
you're winning souls,
Yep.
college as a Christian.
College as a college football player as a Christian.
Wow.
No sex, no partying, no drinking. I think in my time at Ohio State, I could count on
Hmm.
one hand how many times I actually went into a club.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, my mission was to be a
Why,
light.
wait, why were you in the club, Christian?
I know I had let my boys talk me into it. Spent the whole night praying, asking for repentance. I'll never forget, man. We went on this bowl trip. We went to the Outback Bowl in Tampa.
Hmm.
And the first night we got down there, this was my junior year. The first night we got down there, we all went out to Ybor City. Man, I remember going there and I'm like, oh, I felt like so convicted. Like, why am I here? And then I got back to our hotel, man. I swear I was praying all night. Like I felt like I was gonna go to hell. I'm like, Lord, and this is, I'm in college at this time. It was just like I couldn't even relax and enjoy it. Yeah.
So you just brought up something that made me want to ask this. You're praying, you're like, man, Lord, that just made me want to ask you about how would you describe your relationship with the God that you believed in? Because I would imagine if it's fear, if there's a lot of fear in it, you said you never really could rest, but I guess Did you have a sense that you had a heavenly father, that you were loved, and that you were talking to a friend in heaven? Like, what was that like?
Man, you know, it's like I told you on our brief time a couple weeks ago, like
Mm,
I knew I was saved, but I never felt safe
mm,
with God.
mm,
And like I was always praying,
mm,
trying to get it right,
mm,
making sure I wouldn't get left behind,
mm,
making sure, you know, I wasn't lukewarm.
mm,
Um, and it was just a constant vicious cycle of, you know, doing the right thing and then messing up and feeling like my world was going to crash. Like,
mm,
and I've had to like do
mhm,
a ton of self work
mm,
and therapy to like
mm,
get through this because man, there's some like almost anger because I don't even feel like I maxed out on my capabilities as an athlete because of
mm,
um how fear-based and trauma-ridden my relationship with that God was.
mm,
Like there would be times like, man, during the day of school, I looked at a girl, I lusted, like, so now I'm gonna have a bad football practice.
mm.
And so I would literally manifest, and now
Wow.
I was a receiver, like I drop a pass, and I'm like, oh, that's because because I sinned earlier. Like God is trying to teach me a lesson. Like you can't. And so like that continued all the way through Ohio State.
Mm,
And so imagine like you're
yeah.
playing at the best of the best level and you're competing with the best of the best and everybody else is out there playing free, just balling out and I'm balling, but if I mess up it's like that condemnation like,
Yeah.
oh man, I messed up because like damn, the rest of this is going to be jacked up now. So like
Wow.
it just it capped and that
Mm,
was just
mm,
one
mm.
piece of my life, but
Yeah.
it capped so many other areas of my life too because I never felt free and able to just live, you
You
know?
know, it's funny because I told somebody this, another Christian rapper actually asked me, like, what was so bad about you as a Christian? And
Mm,
I said, I know that there were times, even as a Christian in hip hop, there were times where I downshifted and dialed back my potential
mm,
or didn't put myself forward for certain things
mm-hmm,
because I felt like it would be too prideful.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
not always. I told this story to this one guy one time. I said, I remember this is going to be a very interesting story to tell this now. It was the day after we did the album release party for our Holy Culture album, which was
Okay.
Cross Movements. That's probably Cross Movements flagship album, our best
Mm-hmm.
album.
Mm-hmm.
We did the release party on a Saturday night. Massive, crowd came through, packed out this venue.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to a radio station the next day, Power 99, which is like the premier radio station in Philadelphia, secular radio
Mm-hmm.
station. So we get on and they play a song, they play Cry No More, which
Mm-hmm.
Cry No More is that's that
Right.
one.
Right.
Then they play When I Flow.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's another one. It's like, yo, you guys are lit, you guys are lit. And then so we think we're done. We're just talking to the DJ
Mm-hmm.
or the radio personality. And then they say, hey, you know what? This is going so good. Let's play one more. And we didn't plan on playing one more.
Oh wow.
For anybody who knows that album, there's a few key songs that are like,
Yeah.
yo, play this one.
Yeah. Right.
And I'll never forget this. There was like silence, and we're live on the air. So dead air is something you don't
Right.
want.
Right. Yep.
There had to be silence for at least a good 15 seconds. And it's like,
Oh wow.
what song? Somebody say something. And I don't know what they were all thinking, but I think everybody was thinking, I can't suggest one of my songs.
Mm.
That's too prideful.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there thinking, there's one or two songs you got to play now. You either have to play Rise Up from Ambassador,
Yeah.
or you have to play Start Something from me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a part of me that I just knew. I said, if we play Start Something, I felt like, because I had heard the testimony from people like, you play Start Something, and people like request like, yo, play that again like 10 more
Right.
times.
Right.
I'm like, if we play Start Something, this will catapult us to the moon,
Right.
but I can't say that.
Mm.
I can't suggest my song. That's just too prideful,
Right.
self-seeking.
Right.
And so we all sit around for like 15, and then finally, I think I said, or maybe somebody said, play forever. Wells's song, Tiny song, We're Gonna Live Forever. It's a great song,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't play a 5-minute
Right.
song on the radio.
Right.
So they play Live Forever. And the first couple verses, it's like, yeah, this is another one.
Right.
But then it drags on for another 2 minutes. And you could just feel whatever momentum we had been building, you could feel it like drift away, like,
Right.
oh, that was y'all's chance.
Man.
And I never really thought too much about it because I felt like I did the Christian thing. I didn't put myself forward in that moment.
Yeah.
So I did whatever happens, it's in God's hands. When I
Yeah.
look back at it now, I'm like, we squandered an opportunity that moment. We squandered because I think everybody was trying to do the Christian thing
Right.
and not put themselves forward.
Right. Yep. Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I wonder what folks will say to this anecdote now, but
Right.
yeah. So yeah, you're back on you. You're in college.
That's deep.
You're dealing with the mental anguish of a God that you're trying to not let down. And so my question to you was, did it feel relational? And I guess this is where you say, nah, I was saved, but didn't feel safe. Never really relational.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It didn't feel relational. You know, that I guess at that time I thought it was relational. I thought that was just the relationship.
Okay.
Now I know enough
Right.
to know that that's an unhealthy as hell
Right.
relationship. So,
Wow.
but yeah, in that way, yeah, it did feel like this is just the relationship, because that's what that's what I was reading every day. So,
wow. Let me say this too for the person who's watching, because there's somebody who let me stop saying there's somebody. Here's what if I was still a Christian, here's what I'd be saying to your testimony. Oh, que lástima. So sad. I wish somebody had gone and shown him a better way. I wish somebody would have told him that he could rest in the Savior's work. Oh, too bad Jamal Luke didn't get a chance to know how secure and that's probably why he deconverted. I'd be saying that to you if I was a Christian still. Here's what I want the person who's watching to think about. Why didn't God say this to him?
exactly.
Why didn't God secure it? If there is a God in heaven and there is a more secure version of the gospel, why didn't God get that to him?
Exactly.
Right? At what point do you stop blaming the deconvert and even stop blaming the Christian community that you might feel like, oh, they failed, and start looking at this God that you believe is sovereign?
Yep. And are you reading a different Bible? Because the Bible that I read cover to cover in high school, I would get up every morning and read my Bible and eat cereal. Like every morning in high school, I did that.
Wow.
So I read the Bible cover to cover, and the Bible I read has the schizophrenic God of I love you, but I'll send you to hell all throughout it. So unless you're reading a different Bible,
yeah,
it's very easy to see why somebody would have that type of relationship.
Well, see, here's what people do. They don't read a different Bible. They just mix it differently than you do. And this is an analogy I use from the music world. When you mix a song, you have everything tracked out. That means you put the cymbals on one track, you put the bass guitar on one track, you put the snare on, everything's got its own track. So I could turn the piano down, turn the snare up. I can make a completely different song based on how I mix it. I could turn your main vocal down and turn your backup vocal up. And depending on who's mixing it, you get a different song. Well, that's what we do with the Bible. You turn up John 3:16 and you turn down Hebrews, you know what I mean? That talks about people falling away.
Yeah.
If you mix it differently, you get a different story. And so, yeah, they're reading the same Bible as you. They just mixed it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yep.
So, okay. So you go through college that way. You go into your career. So how long from the time you're 7 or 8, at what age do you deconvert?
So my process for for deconverting started in 2011.
Okay.
So I was at that time 30,
Okay.
30 years old. And
Hmm.
what kind of kickstarted it was I went through a divorce.
Okay.
So it was like
Hmm.
when that happened, I got married. 95% of the reason I got married, and she's the mother of my first child, absolutely amazing mom. We just weren't supposed to be married.
Hmm.
It wasn't a good fit in a lot of different ways, but great friend. She's amazing. But 95% of the reason I got married was because it was
Hmm.
the right thing to do according to the Bible. Like
Yeah.
we met each other, we hit it off,
Mm-hmm.
fell in love. It was like, well, I don't want to sin. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. So
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to be able to have sex.
Was she a Christian too?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
she was, and she had gotten saved like, mid adulthood. So she had, kind of had the wilding out through
Mm.
high school, early adulthood, and then came to Jesus.
Mm.
So she was going to Bible college at the time.
Mm.
So yeah, she was super Christian. I was super Christian. I was like, okay, we need to do the right thing.
Mm.
Got married. Well, when that ended, it was like the first time I was on the wrong side of the scriptures now in a
Mm.
major way because of what the
Mm.
Bible, says about divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of put me in a place I had never been in my life. Like, man, God, like, I know I don't want to be married, but now I'm on this side of you. Like, how do
Mm.
how do I make it right? So
Mm.
that kind of kick-started it. And then also at that time, um, I was working as a teacher. So once I chased pro football for about 2 years after college, didn't pan
Mm.
out. My first big boy job was as a teacher and a coach, and I was teaching at a Christian school for a major worldwide ministry who
Mm.
everybody would know of if I said the name. And so when the divorce happened, I'm still teaching at this school, um, and I'm starting to notice things there, like the way they do things, the way this
Mm.
pastor treats this
Mm.
major pastor
Mm.
treats people, and I'm like, okay, I'm divorced. That's not adding up. You can't, there's no way you can call yourself a Christian and be treating people
Mm.
like this. Um,
You don't have to say any more than you want to, but I'm just curious. When you
mhm.
say I'm divorced, that's not adding up. Was it something that you feel like God maybe let you down in allowing you to be divorced? Like, how does that affect your faith? I know it could affect you feeling like maybe you're not worthy to serve anymore or something like that, but
Yeah.
was it more than just that?
I think I think at the core of it, it was like, okay, I've done everything right. And in doing everything right, I know this
Mm.
institution of marriage with this person doesn't feel right to me.
Mm.
So
Gotcha.
I want to exit out of this, and I'm exiting out of it. But now I'm wrong on the grand scale of Christianity.
So if you do what you feel is right in your soul, but then spiritually
Yeah,
it's wrong, something's
yeah,
off about that. Okay, I get
exactly.
it. Thank
Yep,
you.
yep.
Yep. Okay.
That's it. That's
Mm.
it.
Mm. Mm. That's
Yeah. So it's just that combination of that divorce,
mm-hmm.
what I was experiencing with that major ministry,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that kind of got the wheels turning. Like, okay, like something isn't
Mm.
right about this whole Christian thing. Like everything I've known
Mm.
and believed to be true,
Mm.
it's not making sense anymore. So it kind of kick-started
Mm.
me asking questions and starting to search for
So
answers.
who did you ask?
Um, so it's funny. I really didn't ask any person. It was
Mm-hmm.
like the questions were coming,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started to get exposed to things that made
Mm.
me think outside of my box now.
Okay.
So I got
Mm.
exposed to um there was this show on A&E,
Mm.
and it may seem little, but it was big at the time. There
Right.
was this show called The Hollywood Medium,
Mm.
and it was it was like this lady, she would be interviewing like Hollywood stars who had had these ghost experiences. Like, and so I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, well, either this is true or they're lying. But if it's true, then the Bible can't be true. Because the Bible tells me that once you die, you're either in heaven or hell. So there can't be these disembodied spirits. So like that made me kind of start to question. Then I learned about something called regression therapy. This book called Many Lives, Many Masters, where there's like medical, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it's a medical practice where like if you have a like a back ailment, where they'll hypnotize you and they'll send you back into a past life to see where that may have occurred in a past life, and then you're healed that way. So when you come back to that back pain or whatever is gone. And so there's these documented stories in this book called Many Lives, Many Masters. And so I'm like, okay, well, either that's true or this dude's got a full-blown medical practice based on lies. So, so I started reading that and learning that and understanding that. And then what really kind of took me over completely was I got a hold of rest his soul. He helped me big time, Carlton Pearson.
Okay.
Got a hold of his book, The Gospel of Inclusion, and learned about his journey. And I was like, oh, when I read that book, like it lifted so many chains, so many weights off of my soul. That's kind of what sealed it. Like, yeah, I know I don't believe this anymore. Yeah.
Now, did you know that there were very many Christians who were saying Carlton Pearson is wrong, and why did that not matter to you?
It didn't matter to me because that was icing on the cake of what I was already feeling. Like it was already 2 plus 2 wasn't already it was already not adding up to 4. The math was already not mathing, right? So when I got a hold of that and I started learning about his journey, I'm like, oh yeah, this just seals the deal. That makes sense as to why I'm seeing this major global minister treat people like shit, because he probably really don't even believe what the Bible says, but he can't give up the money game, right? So like it started making sense as to why I was experiencing what I was experiencing.
So then you're reading about people talking about past lives, you're seeing people talk about paranormal experiences. Carlton Pearson deconstructs, he doesn't deconvert. Why does that lead to a deconversion for you, not just a deconstructing and just coming to a different understanding of Christianity?
Well, I think for me, and the way, and I could be wrong, but in listening to Carlton Pearson, he would always teach on to the level that a person that is a Christian can ease their way out of it, right? So I never, and he may have, but to my understanding, he didn't still believe. Like he was always kind of like, well, if Jesus did
yeah, I never studied him, so I don't really know.
Yeah, so it was more like okay, if Jesus did exist, here's and this scripture says this, here's what it's really saying. It wasn't like I still believe. And then it was like, okay, if Jesus did die and based on what the Bible's saying, then that was it. There's no like everybody is going to heaven. But there was so much of his teachings that were helpful for people coming out of that that religious trauma. So it was like, no matter what anybody else said, it was, they couldn't shake me at that point.
Okay. So what point was that?
That was probably like 2013.
Okay. So about a 2-year journey from
Yeah.
the cracks in the foundation and when you say, you know what, I don't believe this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Carlton Pearson, I'm sure, helped you do away with hell.
Yeah.
Heaven became, well, if Jesus is real, then we're all saved anyway.
Mm-hmm.
When you deconverted in 2013, did you still have a hope of heaven, or what did you do with God? What did you do with those beliefs about the afterlife and God?
Yeah, and honestly, so that's still like a work in progress for
Okay.
me. What I believe, because I study, so now I call myself a student. Like I'm open, I want to continue to learn and grow. Where I'm at in this moment is I believe that there's multiple lives and incarnations. I've read Seed of the Soul, another great book. But just learning about karma and understanding that, and it just that makes a lot more sense to me in this moment. Now, 2 years from now, I could be further in the journey, and
Okay.
I don't believe, but I'm okay with that. Like I'm
Mhm.
okay with not having an answer right
Got you.
now.
Got you.
But I just believe that all is well and all is going to be well.
Okay. And in your worldview, is there a God in it that's making it well, that's assigning these reincarnations, or do you just leave that up for discussion later?
So in this moment, I feel like that there is something. I don't know, like we term it God,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll even occasionally still use that term God because
Mm-hmm.
it's what I know.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that there is something that has set all this into motion,
Mm-hmm.
and that something is not like actively pulling the Geppetto strings,
Mm-hmm.
but it's in motion.
Okay.
And there's universal laws and principles that govern
Mm-hmm.
this plane of existence.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in this
Okay.
moment.
So 11 years now, post faith,
Yeah.
you stopped reading the Bible, or do you still read
Yeah,
it?
I haven't been able to pick it up.
Okay.
And it's been a couple years. Like I used to read every day.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read the Bible in I'd say probably 5, 6 years at least. I'll still
Mm-hmm.
go to church occasionally. Like I'll take my kids to church, but for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's more of a personal growth and development. Like I
Okay.
go where I know, I can take what I need or want
Mm-hmm.
to apply to my life, and I can leave what doesn't.
Okay. Why do you take the kids?
Because they enjoy playing with the kids. They
Mm-hmm.
enjoy and I want them to have a spiritual base.
Okay.
So their mothers are, you know, still in the church,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. Some of
Mm-hmm.
them, but I want them to have a base, and I make sure outside of there that they understand that this is a part of your journey. It's a part of your
Mm-hmm.
process. This
Okay.
is not us going to church does not make or break your
Right.
spiritual growth and evolution. Um, this is a place where you can learn about spiritual things, you can
Mm-hmm.
socialize, but this is just a base. You're going to find your own path.
Mm-hmm.
So I make it a very interactive
Yeah.
growth
Okay.
thing.
Okay. Wow, that's very interesting, man.
Yeah, yeah.
um, do you I'm trying to think of what's a good way to try to ask a question that would help somebody here. What's the biggest difference about you having deconverted?
Freedom.
Mm,
Freedom. Life is a lot more enjoyable.
mm-hmm,
It's a lot more peaceful.
mm,
Um, just like there's
mm,
been weight, a
mm.
ginormous weight
Yes.
lifted off.
Yeah.
It's like over these last 11 years, and I'm sure for the rest of my life, it's like learning how to ride your bike without training wheels,
Mm-hmm,
right? When you have the training wheels on, the only reason you don't fall off is because the training wheels are on there. Like
mm-hmm,
the only reason you're not going to go have
mm-hmm,
sex is because you don't want to go to hell
mm-hmm,
with religion.
mm-hmm,
Well, now I cannot have sex with somebody because I just don't want that exchange of energy with that
mm-hmm,
person.
mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
I just if that's somebody's wife, like I don't want to put that karma out into the
Mm.
world, you know, so I can now start to live, behave, and operate because it aligns with my moral compass and how I want to show up in the world
Mhm.
and help humanity be better overall, as opposed to now I'm doing stuff or not doing stuff because there's this God that's going to send me to hell.
Mm.
So you're able to live more authentically from your core as
Mhm.
opposed to
Yeah.
external fear.
There are Christians, and I've heard them, who make authentic living like they would sort of like, see, they the deconverted folks always talk about authenticity like it's some prize to be had, but actually it is.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
there's absolutely a joy, a pleasure, um, a reward even in being
Mhm.
able to own your decisions,
Yeah.
own your future, be responsible for this is the life that I want to live, as
Mhm.
opposed to trying to, sending up a Hail Mary prayer and see what God says and getting my purpose from God. And no, I own this life. This is my life. I'm responsible for
Absolutely.
what happens here.
Yep. Yep. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Mm. So freedom, authenticity.
Mhm.
Um, do you miss it at all?
No, not one bit. Not one bit, man. And my family's all still the same. Like
Hmm.
they're my brother's a minister,
Hmm.
you know, and I don't miss it one bit.
Mm.
Not at
And
all.
have you told your family that you're no longer a Christian?
Not in those words.
Okay.
They've seen it in my actions and
Mm.
my language, the way
Mm.
I talk about spiritual things.
Hmm.
So they've seen it that way, but this will probably be the first time they hear it like
Mm. What do you
overtly.
what do you what do you anticipate? Do you anticipate good conversations? Do you anticipate people just steering clear of the issue, or
I think it'll probably be like we gotta pray for you and you know that whole I'm praying for you, like you need to tell me you're praying for me. Like I know that's a backhanded
right?
backhanded
Mm.
way, but yeah, I'm sure it'll be a lot of that. But
Yeah.
like I said, for me, like this is
Hmm.
part of the journey, the
Hmm.
growth journey. I just want to continue to grow and
Yeah.
evolve. I never want to be at a place where I have it all figured out. Like I'm
Hmm.
okay with not knowing. I'm
Hmm.
okay with just being a student.
Hmm. So I see you on Facebook, and you're
Mhm.
often in front of crowds
Mhm.
speaking to people. What do you do? Like what is that about? And
Y-
what fuels you to do that?
Yeah, so I've been a speaker, motivational speaker for about 15 years now.
Mhm.
So I'll speak at schools, still speak at churches, may not speak at churches after this airs, but uh but I speak at corporations.
Mhm.
My life is just about impacting people. It always has been. So like
Mhm.
even when I was stuck in the Christian trauma world, it was about like winning souls and
Mhm.
impacting people for Jesus. Well, for me, the core of who I am is just impacting people and helping people to be
Mhm.
their highest self. And so that doesn't change. Now I'm able to just speak from a deeper, more authentic place
Mhm.
and teach people how to live that way outside of
Mhm.
confines of the man-made book
Mhm.
that people worship.
Wow. Wow, man. Inspiring.
Yeah, yeah.
Inspiring. Um, anything else that you would like to share for the person who may be, I use the phrase trapped in the prayer closet, somebody who's looking at you saying, man, you seem free. You're able to smile, you're able to, but I don't know how to get from where I am to where you are. Like, what would you say to somebody who's looking at that door? Like, I think my heart's already on the other side. I don't know how to get
Mhm.
there.
I would say find some people, like stay plugged in to Brady, like find community of other
Hmm.
people that have experienced what you're experiencing, because you can lean on them. They can be strong for you when you can't be,
Hmm.
and continue to be a student, continue
Hmm.
to read and get outside of that box. The more you can tear down that box, unplug from that matrix,
Hmm.
the stronger you'll be and being able to fully walk outside of that closet and
Yeah.
do what I'm doing now. Like,
Mm,
you know, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this. Like
mm,
I would have felt how I felt, but
mhm,
I wouldn't have been able
mm,
to come online and say
mm,
all this stuff. Whereas like now, like I'm so free, I'm so
mm,
strong in
mm,
what I don't believe.
mm,
Like I'm okay with catching the strays or whatever
mm.
that come with it because I'm free.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
doesn't matter anymore.
There is a power in not needing
Yes.
the approval of the
Yep.
religious community.
Yep. Yep.
And I could just see there's several people in my life who, once they realized you don't have that magic spell over me anymore,
Hmm.
your
Yes.
disapproval is not going to change,
Right.
my life, my lifestyle, whether I come back to the faith. Like, it doesn't. There's no power, and
Hmm.
taking that power back from
Yes.
people.
Yep.
There's a certain joy I get out of seeing people take that power back.
Yeah. No
Yeah,
doubt. No
yeah.
doubt.
Hey man, thank you for telling your story. Real quick, any questions you have for me? Because I always give people a chance in cases you see me online doing the stuff that I'm doing. Uh, any questions that I could fill? If not, we wrap it up there.
I would say, man, like what books would you recommend? You know, you kind of have heard my journey and where I'm
Mm-hmm.
at this point. And like I said, I want to continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there's any books that you would recommend, I definitely want to get those in my hands and
Mm.
jump on those ASAP.
So one good book that I always recommend is a book called The God Gene.
Okay.
The God Gene talks about what parts of our brain is responsible for cluing us into what we think is metaphysical,
Okay.
and why is that? How does that work? And what other what other experiences light the brain up in the same way? And why are we religious? So there's that. Hmm. I'm sure I have others, but I just can't think of them right now because a lot of the books that I read were books that were helping to deconstruct the Christian faith. If you've already deconstructed that,
Hmm.
um, I don't know how much more of what I read would actually be helpful to you, but I do think there's a sense in which me and Jay Witt talk about this on Exit Strategy a lot. There's a sense in which deconstructing the Christian faith, some of those same tools could actually be applied to a lot of the other metaphysical things that people are trying to throw at you.
Mm.
Um, and so sometimes I see people go from Christianity and then they become Muslim or they become something else. I'm like, well, the same reasons why you left this could actually undo that if you were to apply
Right.
these same principles.
Right.
Um, so saying that, yeah, I would have to look and think of
Okay.
some other books, but I'll send you some titles that might help in that regard.
Okay. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, B.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey man, much love to you. Thank you for telling your story. Definitely come back through on YouTube and check out some of the
Yes.
comments. I'm sure there'll be people who will be encouraging you and maybe even have some questions about your story. But thanks so much, man, for telling your story, man.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate you for
Yep.
having me.
Yep. Love and light to you in your life after faith.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
All right.
All right, brother.
Hold on for 1 second. Let me end
Yep.
this.